Hello and welcome to our first episode of the Sidelines podcast with myself, Anant, alongside Carl and Tiwa. We're delighted to start the sports podcast to share our passion and enthusiasm about the sports industry. So first, how about we introduce ourselves? I'm Anant and I'm a passionate cricketer and I was lucky enough to represent the UAE under 16.
Hi, I'm Carl. I love playing basketball, and I've also been lucky enough to have the opportunity to represent the UAE under 16 team as well.
Hi, I'm Tiwa. I like playing football. And for any of you guys wondering, I support Chelsea.
And I would also like to mention that I'm also an avid football fan and I support City.
Well, you heard it here first. Chelsea are going to win the Champions League next year.
That's a pretty bold statement, but I actually think the Europa League is much better. You know, it's much better suited for you. You win games there.
I disagree.
So anyways, due to the coronavirus, it has made all of us stay home and allowed us to spend more time with our loved ones. And nowadays, it could get boring because of the quarantine orders that many countries have implemented. And believe it or not, the three of us have started to get a bit bored ourselves. So with this podcast, we bring you some entertainment knowledge that you may not have known before regarding the sporting industry.
It's also worth mentioning that in our future episodes, we will be interviewing special guest speakers to talk about their experience in working in the sports industry. So make sure to keep an eye out for these episodes as well.
So today, we'll be talking about the effect of COVID-19 on some of the biggest sporting markets in the world. To start off our discussion today, Anand, I'm guessing the cricket world has come to a complete stop. And I know that the IPL has been postponed. So what are the other leagues and nations doing after the COVID-19?
I definitely agree with you, Tiwa. The fact that IPL has been postponed indefinitely. And there are also chances of the World Cup being postponed as well, which is happening in Australia. And it was supposed to happen during the month of October, November. And also, there was a new format that the England and Wales Cricket Board had invented pretty much. It was called the 100. And last week only, they said that it's going to be suspended to 2021. And anyways, on the note of England and Wales Cricket Board, I actually read, and it's quite shocking to see this figure itself, that they might be losing $373 million if the season is called off and no cricket is played. And not only that, but in the UK, the inaugural World Test Championship Finals will also take place, which, in my opinion, is one of the most exciting tournaments that ICC have established. And it would definitely be devastating if it got postponed.
You know, I was genuinely looking forward to the Test Championships in the Lords, especially after last year's World Cup.
Wow, last year's World Cup, just amazing. And for those who don't know, I was played against England and New Zealand. And for me, it was definitely one of the greatest finals in history. And to be honest, I did feel a bit bad for New Zealand because they gave such a tough fight for England. So in terms of repercussions due to the COVID-19, I would like to point out West Indies, and especially since they'll be losing one of their star players, which is Chris Gayle. So in context, West Indies are known for having the greatest and youngest talents. And I would like to mention Shimron Hitmyer and Nukusan Puran, who were phenomenal during the West Indies tour of India this year. Just their knocks just showed their maturity and how good they are, how talented they are. And surely these names have created a base for themselves and a strong foundation for them to stay in the team for a longer period of time. And unlike Chris Gayle, who thought he would retire in style, may not happen, especially since the ICC tournaments will be postponed in the near future. And yeah.
And since we're talking about repercussions, Ajax were handed the title of the Dutch Football League. And also in Belgium, it was announced that the season will end and that Club Brugge will be the winners, as they were at the top of the table at that point. After this announcement, the president of UEFA expressed his frustration by stating that the consequence for leagues being abandoned will be the potential forfeit and not being entered into European competitions like the Champions League.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, I remember Ajax playing quite well in the Champions League this year. But not seeing them next year in the Champions League will be shocking.
It's not like we're going to see Man City there for the next 3 years.
Ouch. Anyways, on that note, I would like to also talk about Australian Cricket Board. due to the COVID-19 again, and the fact that since we all know that the World Cup will be happening there, they recently laid off 80% of their staff. And for me, I found it quite shocking, but of course, it have to be cost efficient, especially due to these unprecedented times. And also, their board has a chance of losing 300 million Australian dollars due to the pandemic, which many critics and actually the public also have said that if the government exempts the Indian cricket team for the 4 Test tour in Australia, which will happen during December, the board will have a chance of retaining the $300 million, and that Test series will definitely be a one to look out for, especially with the return of Stephen Smith and David Warner against the Indian Test side.
Well, I bet everyone's looking forward to their return, especially after their form in the Ashes.
Actually, speaking of the Ashes, everyone must go check out the Ashes on Amazon Prime. It's definitely a show to binge watch.
It really is great. But before you go and do that, you have to watch The Last Dance on Netflix, a documentary about the greatest to ever play sports, Michael Jordan.
Definitely. And anyways, on the note of basketball, so Carl, how has the NBA been affected? I actually recently saw and read on the ESPN how there may be salary cuts of the players themselves, and this will heavily impact the big stars like Stephen Curry and LeBron James.
Yeah.
So what are your views on it?
Yeah, big stars are definitely getting impacted. I mean, if games are canceled, the league can deduct approximately 1.1% for each lost contest. And for high-paid all-stars like Steph Curry and LeBron, they'd be on the hook for over $400,000 per game. The
Wow.
NBA will also be losing $350 to $450 million of league gate revenue alone. Not only that, but the NBA and the NBA Player Union are discussing on withholding 25% of players' salary if the league doesn't end.
Wow. So what about the championship? Will anyone get to receive this title, or will the season get cancelled?
I mean, we really don't know as of now, but there are rumors that the regular season might get canceled and the NBA will skip right to the playoffs. But personally, I think keeping the regular season and having the playoffs in the summer would be a much better option.
Well, I have to say I agree with you, Carl, because we get to watch more great plays from upcoming superstars like Trae Young. And if I'm not mistaken, I think he recently said that he's a much better shooter than Stephen Curry.
Yeah, he did. He basically said that in 1 year time, he'd be smashing Steph Curry's records, which honestly I find quite impossible. As a basketball player, shooting is one of the toughest parts of the game. And
Definitely.
as mentioned before, ESPN has released a documentary about Michael Jordan and the 97-98 Chicago Bulls. It released on April 19th, and it has quickly become the most viewed ESPN documentary of all time. I mean, I guess this is what fans around the world are watching now that the NBA season has been delayed. But they're also entertaining themselves by watching players cope with self-isolation in a variety of ways. Many are connecting on social media, and of course, everyone's talking about the new documentary. Talking about social media, this week's highlights are hilarious. Patty Mills plays the blues, Chris Paul learns how to wash his clothes for the first time, and a fresh batch of TikTok videos from Taco Fall, LeBron James, and Trae Young.
Well, I can't wait to watch them tonight. Might learn some new dances and maybe become TikTok famous. I mean, who knows?
I mean, with all that free time, you really should consider watching Taco Fall's TikTok videos. That man is as funny as they come.
On that note of TikTok, actually, even the cricketers have been using TikTok quite a lot, especially David Warner, and his posts are surely one to look out for. And the one that you should definitely look out for is the switch challenge he does. It's just funny. It's hilarious. So anyways, Carl, now that the players are living a whole new life on TikTok, how is Adam Silver, the NBA commissioner, handling the situation?
Basically, what he's done so far is, of course, he suspended the regular season until further notice due to concerns of the virus. And people say that it will be harder to actually restart the league than canceling it. However, the NBA could be adapting a different strategy that Mark Tatum, the Deputy Commissioner Chief Operating Officer of the NBA, described to the World Economic Forum. He basically said that they've started a NBA 2K competition. 2K is a esports form of the game, so FIFA, but for basketball, with players streaming from their homes, and they've expedited production to bring forward the release of a new Michael Jordan documentary. They're also hosting live quarantine parties on social media with current and former players. They're showing classic games every night, and they're doing all these stuff to keep their fans. Sorry, they're doing all these stuff to keep their fans engaged during this time.
Well, that's actually quite good from the NBA, and the quarantine parties definitely sound really interesting and unique. And speaking of the 2K competition, it's quite similar to the way the Premier League have recently concluded their Premier League invitations, and which was played on FIFA, of course. And it was concluded that Diego Jota was the winner that beat Trent Arnold from Liverpool's by 2-1 in the finals.
I don't think this is the only thing that Liverpool will be losing. They could have the chance of losing the Premier League title altogether. As many of you know, Liverpool have had a great season this year, only losing one game and are comfortably ahead of the other teams. But if the league is unable to resume by the end of June, the president of UEFA has announced that the season may be lost, which could mean that Liverpool might not get the trophy. So they might have to add one extra year to those 30 years they've been trying.
I'm actually quite relieved to hear this as a City fan. Seems to be that City still hold the title.
I mean, I guess you got lucky, but don't worry, it definitely won't remain that way for long.
Yeah, Chelsea will be up for contention.
Don't get way ahead of yourselves there, Timo. It's Chelsea.
He does have a point.
Anyways, as for European football, it's been announced that the professional football in England will not resume until the middle of May at the earliest, but it will be extended indefinitely. The Premier League will also not resume until it's considered an appropriate time, and other leagues in Europe, such as the Bundesliga and La Liga, have taken the same approach to suspend games until further notice. Also, recently in the news, PSG were announced the winners of League One for the 7th time in 8 years, which is pretty impressive.
I have to say, I'm quite pleased to be hearing this. Not only that, but I'm also pleased to hear about how some Premier League teams are fundraising and contributing to charity.
Yeah. With Liverpool, they've been helping out the community by working closely with the North Liverpool Food Bank to help sort and pack emergency parcels for local families in and around Merseyside. Chelsea have also been helping out the community by running awareness campaigns and supporting domestic abuse charities such as Refuge, and they've also been raising funds. They've also been supporting food banks in London and in Surrey.
If only they were doing this for the IB, this would be great, Cass.
Yeah, I mean, this is great initiative from both these teams, and the NBA. Some players have also been doing pretty much the same thing. They've been donating some of their salaries for those who lost their jobs due to the cancellation of the NBA.
Well, that's actually quite a humble initiative from these players.
It really
And
is.
it's actually quite saddening that these leagues are cancelled. But Tiwa, isn't it true that some of the football teams in the UK, and I actually know that City started training, like they will start training this Monday, that of course the other teams will start training, and some questions arise with that, isn't it a bit unsafe, and what protocols have they been taken to ensure that players don't get infected? And especially like Paulo Dybala from Juventus in Serie A, I know that in the news it said that he got infected 4 times, and especially in the period of 6 weeks. So how do you ensure that players don't get infected like he did?
Yeah, definitely. Arsenal are the first Premier League club to resume player training sessions after the league was postponed. They will be following government social distancing protocols, and according to an Arsenal spokesperson, access will be limited, carefully managed, and social distancing will be maintained. Players will travel alone and do their individual workouts. Another team is Tottenham. They've also started their training sessions and have similar guidelines, like no more than 1 player permitted at any one time, with a restricted number of players on the squad coming to the training center at each day.
Well, someone seems desperate for the upcoming title.
Yeah, it seems to be. I don't think those teams have won since color TV was invented.
Don't worry. As I said before, Chelsea will be the favorites.
Which I reckon the iPhone 14 or 15 might be launched. With how many cameras? Like 6 or 7?
Funny.
Well, I guess that brings us to the end of our first podcast. If you would like to learn more about any of the topics we discussed today, feel free to contact any member of the Sports Society, such as myself, Tiwa, or Anand, to join our society. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast to get notified about any future episode.
Also, if you're an upcoming athlete in the country or passionate athlete that would like to be featured on our podcast, feel free to contact us to get a chance to talk about your sporting achievements or even your passion for the sport. So please feel free to email us at anant.b, which is ANNANT.b at nlcsdubai.ae to get in touch.
You can listen to our podcast on Spotify, Anchor, iTunes, and Google Podcasts by typing in Sidelines or by searching up our account, which is the NLCS Sports Sock.
We'll be back very soon with a special guest lined up, and I'm sure you're all going to really like our next episode.
We hope you all enjoyed our discussion about the effect of COVID-19 on different sporting industries and hope to see you all next time. Have a great day and Ramadan Mubarak to all of those who are fasting.